Well, Patrick was, as I was telling you earlier, he was actually a surfer dude type guy. And like a lot of teenagers, ran with the wrong crowd. But he was the son of a Marine Corps lifer who happened to retire as a sergeant major. And at age 29, Patrick decided, as he told his dad and his best friend, that it was time he did something that made a difference. Now that was before 9/11, so it wasn't an emotional choice. He apparently was really ready to start taking orders because he sure never took them at home very well. But once he joined the Army, he became part of the Dragoons with the 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment and went to basic at Fort Knox. And he ate, slept, and breathed being a scout. And so then, of course, when it was announced that we would enter Iraq, the 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment was one of the first ones to have to get packed up that actually followed the 3rd ID in. And so on April 103, Patrick's unit, and he was with Eagle Troop, they entered Iraq and were actually fighting at Solder City and around the airport and securing that area, and had done a really good job. And they were due home in April of '04, and Patrick was killed in an ambush the night of February 11th. We got a knock on the door at 6 a.m. the morning of February 12th from Casualty Notification Officer out of Fort Benning, Georgia. I was asleep on our sofa because when you've got someone gone like that, you don't sleep well, and so I actually thought I was dreaming when I heard the knocks on the door and someone calling for Sergeant Major Tainsh. And it took me a few minutes to realize I wasn't dreaming, and then I started calling for my husband down the hall. And by that time he had heard it too, and so of course when we both knew, I knew what it was. Wasn't wanting to 100% admit it, but I was already broken into a cold sweat and sick on my stomach, because who else would be at your door at 6 a.m. in the morning and calling Sergeant Major Tainsh in this tone that you could tell had a anxiety to it, but yet almost a fear, which casualty officers have a tough job. That's the toughest job they can have, is having to knock on somebody's door. And so by the time we made it to the front door at the same time and cut on the front porch light, we saw the 2 Army uniforms and knew exactly why they were there. So we opened the door, and of course the first words they say to you is, "Are you Sergeant Major Tainsh?" "Mrs. Tainsh, yes." "And we're sorry, we have to bring the message from the Secretary of the Army that Sergeant Patrick Tainsh was killed last night." It's a hard, tough road, knowing that for our family the Tainsh name ended because Patrick wasn't married. His fiancée was in Afghanistan while he was in Iraq. So no grandchildren, and our other son from my first marriage, he's still single. So you know, it's just the 3 of us now, and our other son still lives in Georgia. But yeah, it rips your world apart. And tomorrow, February 11th, being the 5th anniversary, I guess the way I would describe it now is that the heaviness of the anvil of grief has lightened a bit, but yet that knock on the door is as clear as yesterday.
It's not reality. Okay. I've seen several conflicts where a lot of my buddies have gotten killed and had to write letters to parents after the commanding officer did, telling them what a good kid he was, you know. But you never expect that from your own. It destroys you. It really does.
the book itself and to write about Patrick, his rebellious teenage years, his choice to go into the Army. His letters are recorded in the book, especially the last, or the letter he wrote in the event he died, which is the epilogue to the book. And all the wonderful letters we got from commanding officers about Patrick and the stories from his buddies. But just, I wanted that to be recorded so I could say to his dad, here's Patrick, right here. As long as he's in words, he's immortal. A healing process for both of us, because we then, 1 year after Pat's death, learned about the Tragedy Assistance Program for military survivors in Washington, D.C. And I contacted the director there, who was the founder. She had been a military wife herself, whose husband had been killed in a plane crash. And that's why she created TAPS about 13 or 14 years ago. But that gave us an organization that dealt with grieving widows and children and parents. And I asked them if they would review the book to see if it would be something that they would endorse and that we could give the proceeds to. And they loved it. And so for us, that was a part of our healing, because then we could look outside ourselves and say, now we've got something to share that we hope will help others. The thing is, and as I've had to tell others before, with a little frustration, is that, you know, parents who have children who are still living, you always have those stories to tell. What you did over the weekend, what your plans are for the future. We have no more plans or future to talk about our children when they've passed. So we just ask others to bear with us so we can share the joys and the stories we had while we did have them. So that 5 years is a healing process that will be going on the rest of our life. It's just that, as I said, the anchor of the grief gets a little lighter. But it doesn't take much to maybe bring a tear to the eye. And of course, as parents, we'll always wonder, what rank would he have been today? Because he wanted to retire Sergeant Major like his dad. And if our son, and I can tell you other parents that we know say the same thing, if our children died to make a difference in the future of the children of Iraq and Afghanistan and other places in the world where they fought, then our children didn't die in vain, because they definitely left this world with a hope greater than it had before. And so we have no remorse over it. We just miss Patrick.
This is not just about Patrick Tainsh. It's about all the others.
We feel like we honor them all by continuing to honor Patrick. And we like to always make it a point to say it's not just about Patrick Tainsh, but it gives us the opportunity to remember all of his band of brothers, no matter what military branch they came from, no matter whether they were fallen heroes, wounded heroes, or who are still serving. We want our message to always be that we are proud of all of them, and that we hope America will still remember that they're out there fighting for us in places some people don't even know exist. And we just take the opportunity on these special dates that we remember Patrick to want to remember them all. And to this day, we're still in communications via email with parents. And if they have a bad day, they email us and we try to help perk them up. Or if we're having a bad day, we do the same thing. So really, our future, you're asking that question, that'll always be part of our future. I guess you could just say we're not immersed in it, but we're out here willing to help anybody we can.